Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast, where faith meets the front lines of culture.
We break down what's happening in the world, what's behind it, and how believers can stand strong in truth.
We're not here to fear the times, we're here to understand them.
Because being watchmen means staying awake, staying ready, and staying grounded in the Word.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast.
With Tom and Wendy. Apologies right now for the sound, if you can hear it in the background of the heater. But we're experiencing our first cold snap here in Tennessee, and we record in our very professional studio, which is a Amish-built standalone building that we use as our office, separate from our house, so that our children can continue being children. And it's cold. There's no heat out here, so we use a space heater. And it's a little bit noisy, and I'm not willing to turn it off because what degrees is it right now? Right this second.
Right this second? It's probably in the mid-30s.
You think? You don't think it's gone below freezing?
Gosh, it felt warmer than I expected when I walked outside.
37 degrees.
What did I say?
You did.
I said 38.
That surprises me. Well, it's supposed to get to like 22. So we're going to be quite frosty here on the farm, which we do have to milk in the morning, and that makes for all kinds of fun and exciting joys.
Like most dairy people.
Yep. And then next weekend, it'll be back in the 70s. So we call this time of year the whiplash season because you don't know what you're going to wear or need to wear. Yesterday, literally, I had on a tank top when we went for a walk at sundown.
Yep.
And then I shaved my legs today thinking I was going to wear a dress to church, and whoa, mistaken.
It's hot.
No dress. No, it was not hot. It was cold.
That part was hot.
That's the problem. But yeah, we're going to touch just briefly on the ongoing record-setting government shutdown. What is today? I think today was day 40.
Oh, I haven't kept track.
40, maybe 41, somewhere in that land, which is the government shutdown. We're getting close to running into the Thanksgiving holiday travel, which is the most airport heavy holiday, even more so than Christmas. Thanksgiving there's more flights. Maybe there's more flights in like a concentrated time as compared to Christmas. But that'll be tricky. I have to fly on Thursday, and I don't know how that's going to go. So there is rumor that there is an agreement being struck up right now on a rare Sunday work session. As we record this, it is Sunday. And there is possibly a deal coming to agreement in the Senate. But the deal with that is, if in fact the Senate does vote to pass this new agreement, it is no longer passed by the House. So it would have to then go back down to the House, would be passed by the House, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the House would pass it. And then it would also have to be signed by President Trump. Of course, if he vetoed it, it would go back to Congress, and Congress would have to talk about it again. And then Congress could just pass it without him, right? That's what happens.
Without Trump?
If Trump vetoes it, it goes back to them, and they have to like re-talk about it.
But then don't they need 2/3 majority at that point?
Ah, that is what it is.
Yeah,
yes.
So Trump has to be on board with this.
Yeah,
it's
Trump
not
has to be on
happening.
board.
Nothing's happening without Trump. And that's kind of why he is able to lead the charge and set the table on what is acceptable and not, because the Republicans know there's no point in
passing something he's not going to be behind.
Yeah, exactly. They've and so the Republicans seem pretty united.
Yeah.
I've heard a little thing here or there that's been frustrating.
So the agreement makes way for an extension of the current funding through January, so not very long. There's 3 concessions in the agreement, which I'm not super clear. They fund the Veterans Affairs and they fund something to do with agriculture, and I don't know what the third one is, but it does not fund or extend the health care, which is the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies, which has been the current crux of disagreement between the two sides of the Senate. The Democrats want an extension of this tax credit, and the Republicans no longer want that because it was extended in most recently under the Inflation Reduction Act, which of course was Biden, and it expires at the end of 2025, and the Republicans and I would like for it to expire.
Fundamentally, isn't it the money that's being used to fund illegal health care, illegal
it's a subsidy.
immigration
Yeah,
healthcare?
it allows for relaxed, like who's allowed to be on it, which has allowed for a lot of illegals to be a part of the program. And it also does something else that I can't remember, but essentially it expires at the end of the year. And the agreement is, in addition to these 3 concessions and funding through January, the agreement is that there would be a vote in the Senate in the near future on the separate deal of this tax subsidy having to do with healthcare. So this is why I'm like, I don't know if the Democrats are going to go for this, because they have gotten this far. They really want that extension. So if they are voting on an unknown day, like we agree to vote on this one issue on some future time, that may not be sufficient for them to agree to that. But also there will be no leverage at the time of that vote, right? I mean, they'll be only voting to extend that subsidy. And I hardly think that without any, they'll have no leverage. So it will almost certainly not pass at that separate time. So we'll see. It is, again, we're coming up. It's so funny that like, this is the world we live in. It's not that people are going to lose their SNAP benefits. That doesn't actually push on the government to move. It's that the people who can afford to fly home for holidays, they're going to be really annoyed if their flights are canceled. And so we really need to get to a deal. I mean, that's what's happening, is that the more elite class, which praise the Lord, I guess I fit into that particular category because I can afford to fly places. When they're touched and affected, they're like, okay, this is getting too much.
Well, you hate to say it, but it does bear out in that the middle class votes at a higher rate.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's very true.
It shouldn't be the case. Everybody who's eligible should vote. I would encourage all people to do that, but they are
more engaged with their politicians, perhaps, more vocal. But there's also the concern for the economy, that this is when the economy makes all its money. That's why it's called Black Friday, because it is, well, when Black Friday used to be the day after Thanksgiving, was the first day of the year that companies went into the black, meaning the whole time up until Thanksgiving, they were in the red. And past Thanksgiving is when they make all their money. That is the time of the calendar year that is most profitable for companies. So when we start to push on limitations around the economy in the black time of making money, then you start to get corporate pressure as well.
There's a lot of things. You've got 1.4 million federal employees that are not receiving a paycheck right now. Not only are they upset, understandably so, they have now missed 2, I don't know about every single one of them, but my understanding is most of them have now missed 2 checks. Mm-hmm. And with no end in sight, they're about to miss, their families, we're going to have Thanksgiving, and then we're going to head into Christmas. And I mean, 1.4, I hate that the federal government is an employer of so many people in this nation. It's a joke, but that is the reality of our situation. So in a nation of 340 million, population, 1.4 million, head of households, basically. That's a substantial portion of the workforce, a measurable portion of the workforce that not only is going to struggle through Thanksgiving, struggle through the holidays,
into the holidays.
but they're going, and this is actually what these people care more about than your Christmas, is that those people, if they don't receive their government paychecks, then they will not be able to contribute to the fourth quarter economy.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's what their donors are most concerned with.
Right.
I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of things.
There's corporate pressure now.
The corporate pressure is like, if we lose 1.5 million people from
Buying.
retail Christmas, we're going to have a pretty shoddy fourth quarter economically as a nation. And that's just the 1.4 million. I know that there's a lot of people who are affected by.
Well, even if people choose not to travel for Thanksgiving because of a looming cancellation crisis, that's a lot of money lost for airlines. And those aren't even federal employees. Like,
God forbid it goes into Christmas,
Right.
And that holiday travel season. If it's a mess for Thanksgiving and the shutdown's still occurring at Christmas,
people are not going to book air travel.
it's just going to kind of compound. But you know what? There's good news and bad news in it. It has to hurt to get somebody to give in. Like if there were no consequences, if there was no pressure, we would just go on forever, So the good news and the bad news is the more intense it gets, the more likely one side or the other is to cave. I sure do appreciate the Republicans standing firm, because we've got to
do something to
we
change the
cannot
course.
fund programs for people that are not Americans at this point. We're $38 trillion in debt.
And
counting. It's not that I don't have an empathetic heart for people, compassionate heart. It is the reality of the situation is Americans must come first and last, period, end of story, until further notice. And that further notice might be 50 years, because we're $40 trillion in debt.
Also, we've seen on social media a lot of the, if we rely on the government to feed us, we can rely on the government to starve us sort of rhetoric around socialism. And the same is true for employment. If you rely on the government to employ you, well, that's exactly what communism is like the government is appointing people to their positions, and you are counting on the government for all of your needs. Well, the reason why that has ended in mass starvation and elimination of populations is because exactly what we're looking at. People are corrupt, power centralizes at the top, and no one actually gives a bad word about the bottom feeders, the useless eaters, so to speak. And that's what happens.
When you say useless eaters, you're using someone else's term, right? You're not referring to.
Correct.
You don't believe those people are useless eaters.
I don't believe they're
you
useless
should clarify
eaters.
that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
Yes. Who is that? Is that Lenin, Stalin, all the above?
Yeah, something like that.
Putin.
Not Putin. Yeah. So that's a good catch up.
Okay.
What should we jump into Benghazi and end on Veterans Day? Touch on Veterans Day.
I didn't even know it was Veterans Day. Is that tomorrow?
Well, Veterans Day is technically Tuesday.
Oh.
Which we were just talking about this the other day, because I had a real estate closing scheduled on that day, and I was like, I did not realize that we don't do Veterans Day on a Monday or whatever.
I thought we always did it on a Monday, no?
I think it has to do with
the moon.
No, I think it has to do with it's World War I ended. That's what I thought.
Oh, it is like a specific date. It's anchored to a date.
Exactly. So November 11th is when World War I ended. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918.
There you go. That'll help you remember.
Armistice Day is what it was called.
What was that?
Armistice, because an armistice was declared,
What's an
or
armistice?
I guess it's just another word for like a end of a war.
Ceasefire? Think about that.
But
Like, think about ending a world war. Like the next day, you're like, all right, I guess, like, bye.
but some quick history after we got into another war every decade after that, approximately, Congress decided to expand it to honor all U.S. veterans because they were like,
Not just. So it originally was for World War One
if we're going to be
veterans.
a country that likes to go to war every decade,
gotta
we're going to have
honor
too many
everybody.
days off. So let's just
It's
put
just going to be for everybody.
all of them into one. We'll do a Memorial Day for the dead people. We'll do a Veterans Day for the people who survived.
Which, thank you for that, because most people don't know that there's like, most people get those, like it's all one day.
Memorial Day is for those who
Have died.
paid the ultimate price, sacrificed their lives for our nation. Veterans Day is for those who have served, I guess. I
Yeah.
mean, if that's
And then Labor Day are for people who work.
or pregnant women in their third trimester.
Are you being funny?
Are you that gullible?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I'm a little less blonde though.
you are. Well,
You
so
can't tell, but on the video, I'm a little darker haired today.
we could tell. Okay.
I mean, the listeners can't tell.
Oh, I think you sound darker.
Do I? I am remembering names really well as of our last podcast.
You are. That's good.
Maybe that's what it is.
So Veterans Day, I feel like we just gloss over these things, and I know everyone's gonna say it's so cliche to say we gloss over Veterans Day, but like
I wouldn't say it's cliche.
I feel like it is because it's such a boomer thing of me to be like, we don't give our veterans enough credit. That's not really where I'm going with
Spoken
this.
as a veteran.
I know. What I would like to share is maybe one or two stories that don't have to do with me, but how when we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice and we honor those who serve in front of us as civilians, in between us and evil, whatever you want to say, defending us.
Who stand in the gap.
Stand in the gap. That's good. That's right up there with remembering names. That actually, like, we actually play a big role in that. In a constitutional republic, in a representative democracy, we actually, the people,
We the regular people.
we the voters,
Okay, not the veterans.
not the veterans,
the
we
regulars.
play a huge role in that. And I think that we need to both understand and acknowledge that, and also understand the responsibility and the bear the burden of that, and the consequences of that. Understand the consequences of that. So when I joined a little bit later, I was like 24, 23 or something.
Sounds right.
In like
was there.
2008, you were there, but
You
I
didn't
was a
join.
part
Oh,
of.
you did, yeah.
I graduated high school in 2002.
I was there.
The graduating class immediately after 9/11, or that next year, and many of my friends joined and went off to their basic trainings and their infantry schools, and all that, off to their units, and a handful of them and I'm saying this because many of you know the story and know people who did this too. Like it was a very common thing in that time. But in April of 2003, so many of our 2002 graduates invaded Iraq. And
April of 2003.
yeah.
Crazy.
And actually the first casualty of the 9/11 retaliation, basically in the invasion of Afghanistan, was from Woodland, California. It was.
What do you mean? The first casualty was from our hometown?
Yeah.
Fascinating. How do you know these factoids?
It was. I want to make sure I get I believe it's Neil Roberts, but
A Navy SEAL?
yeah. So he was killed March 4th, 2002. There may have been a death before that in like covert CIA world. because the whole invasion of Afghanistan is incredible. The actual story of how we did it is incredible. But that's another day.
Did you know that in March of 2003, right before April of 2003, was the bombing on Madrid?
Interesting. They had to really play up that Al Qaeda threat. Everybody.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that?
I
is
was
like,
there for that.
in hindsight, to me, that was like us solidifying, because remember we needed what did we call it? A coalition of the willing. Do you remember this?
No.
A coalition of the willing was what George Bush referred to it as.
What I know is axis of evil.
Well, that was who we were against, and in order to go against the axis of evil,
You had to have
we needed a coalition of the willing.
The
And
only thing I know about George Bush is what Will Ferrell made fun of him saying. That's how I remember George Bush.
That was the greatest part. That might be his greatest accomplishment as
Will
a president.
Will Ferrell
Is being president at the same time that
As
Will Ferrell was on
Saturday
SNL.
Night Live.
I would put that as George Bush's
I think
greatest
it makes
accomplishment.
him more memorable because Will Ferrell was making him more memorable.
It definitely does
Will
that.
Ferrell actually had a standalone show that toured where he was George W. Bush. Do you know
amazing.
this? Like a
I
standalone
vaguely
theatrical
remember that
performance.
idea.
I think it was on HBO even. But
Well,
it was separate of Saturday Night
Mind
Live.
you, this is when oh gosh.
So they were a coalition of the willing was also Spain.
Yeah, Richard Brennan's, Don Rumsfeld, who's the guy that just got indicted? John Bolton, Dick Cheney. Oh, who was the?
Dick Cheney just died, right?
We're not going to gloat. We don't gloat about things when
I didn't
people
gloat.
die. That's what I was
spoke.
just making
I
sure
just
you
spoke.
didn't. And just saying.
How old was he? Like 100?
Old, he lived to be an older age than he deserved.
Oh,
We'll just say that. But anyhow,
sorry.
this is when the weapons of mass destruction and all the people I just named off were
Liars.
telling everyone, the world, the UN, Congress, blah, 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 that
We must kill them all.
Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Now, mind you, Iraq had literally nothing to do with
September
Osama
11th.
bin Laden, 9/11, Al Qaeda, like nothing to do with it.
And by that you mean the country had nothing to do with it. You don't mean that we
Saddam Hussein,
like
the
they had something
people
to
of
do with
Iraq,
it because we invaded them in connection
Yes.
to September
Yes.
11th. But they had nothing to do with it. It would be like if someone broke into your neighbor's house and the cops showed up and raided that house and your house, and you were like,
just
"Why
to
am
be
I
safe.
here? Why am I involved?"
Which actually, for those of you like geographically, Iraq isn't that close to Afghanistan either. Like I mean, it is in comparison to like America, but like
It's closer to Afghanistan than America, but
they're
not
not
like-
neighboring countries.
it's not like
Okay.
while we're in Afghanistan.
And what's funny too is like we were definitely like bigger enemies with Iran, and I actually I believe that might have been why we wanted to get at Iraq, is we wanted a foothold closer to Iran, and Saddam wasn't willing to
Difference
be
in
our
Iraq
guy.
and Iran.
That it is really,
Was that Toby?
it's hard for me to be nice to Americans when you remind me of lines like that.
That's a great line. Quality.
Oh my gosh. No, in
Very
hindsight,
relatable to the average American.
don't make me, don't
We're
encourage me to be
helping
condescending
the average
and
American
truthful towards.
no
Yes,
more.
this is exactly what I'm talking about with the Veterans Day thing. Because we didn't know the difference between Iraq and Iran, this is what you got. 80,000 maimed soldiers, 10,000 dead. And I don't want to say we deserve it because that sounds horrible, but like, anyhow, I was going to tell a quick story. In 2005, I was in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my buddies were already on their
there.
second tour in Iraq. And
You were on your
we
second
were
tour around.
we were touring around the country playing. We're starving artists. It was not extravagant at all. Don't get any ideas. Playing college campuses, bars, on like a college radio tour. It was a ton of fun. It was very cool. And it just so happened that one of the guys that we went to school with, his older brother, who was a staff sergeant in the Army, was wounded in Iraq, severely wounded. My understanding is he died at least 2 times. on the way to Germany. I want to say maybe 3 times though. It's how bad it was. And so he was injured in Iraq. Of course, they get you. It's just crazy what we can do for our guys. It's incredible. But, got him back to the,
Safe
field
place.
medical, stabilized him enough, I guess, then got him to Baghdad, then flew him from Baghdad to, I forget which air, I would assume maybe Ramstein in Germany. I don't know. But he went to Germany and then stayed in Germany for a while, quite a while, and then went to Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. And I don't even know how we heard, but through the grapevine, we heard through friends.
Small town.
We're from Woodland, California, and on the West Coast, and we were like in Boston or New York or something when we heard that our buddy's older brother, who I never met in person until this point, but 2 of the guys in our band were closer friends in like elementary school and stuff with this guy's brother. So they actually did know him personally. Again, not super well, but like they definitely knew each other. And we heard through the grapevine that like we were going to be driving through Washington, D.C. area on the very first day that he could possibly get visitors. And it's going to be hard for me to not tear up and tell this story. I'm serious. It's hard for me.
Squeeze your
And
butt cheeks.
I will be squeezing my butt
That
cheeks.
does help.
And so it was one of those things where it's like, we were very proud of our hometown, as everyone should be of theirs. And we like stuck together, people had stuck together for us. That's another story too. But we were like, I don't even remember how it worked out, but like one of the guys reached out to his mom and was like, hey, I heard that Brandon could possibly have visitors. We're passing through. We just wanted to, and they were like thrilled about it. And so we're like, okay, we're going to do it, and going to Walter Reed Medical Center.
That's cool.
And
He was like an amputee.
yeah, we'll get to that. We are a band of long-haired hippies, mind you. We're smoking and drinking, partying it up.
I wasn't there, I mentioned. Okay. I cannot be held responsible for such debauchery. I was in college having my own.
And I mean, honestly, it was really awkward. Like, I remember being super uncomfortable about it, but also knowing like this is the right thing to do. Like, we absolutely got to do this. I didn't really know him. I'm like, I'm just going to go along with the guys. But hold on.
We really do need like a studio assistant to help with the Chat GPT rapid fire searching that needs to happen mid-episode. So, what are you looking for?
I was going to try to get this guy's name right. Sorry to make you. No, that's not it. Well, either way, I was really uncomfortable about it. It was awkward and weird. And so the injury to him that he had was in an IED, an improvised explosive device. And I'm honestly not even sure to this day of the exact circumstances of what happened, but he did briefly kind of tell us the part he wasn't even entirely sure of the circumstances, mind you. You know what I mean? But I remember him briefly telling us that basically he like woke up and one of his legs was gone. And basically he was like in and out of consciousness and then out of consciousness. And I believe he said like he woke up in Germany. You know, like that was the next thing he remembered.
Your brain really, even
well,
when you're
and he might have
conscious-
actually been unconscious. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So he lost enough blood to die, like I said, at
that's
least
why.
2 times,
Got it.
if not 3 times.
Wild.
And anyhow, we get to Walter Reed. We're just a couple of hippies walking into this place, and we are met by this. I'm pretty sure he was an officer, but he was the first, at least soldier with Soldier's Army, to return to combat as an amputee. And so he was currently
that met you.
this man that met us as like to bring us in. and he was currently like in charge of the amputee floor at Walter Reed, because there's a whole floor of just amputees, and brought us up. And then I'm sure it's fine to use his name, but Brandon met us on the floor, and we met, and he's hobbling around as a one-legged amputee. Everyone there, including the guy we met at the door, Brandon, just absolutely, like, spirits were high, like just fired up. And it was incredible to see, because it's a very, very depressing place.
Sure.
And the reason why so Brandon was in charge of a group of guys, and what I found so interesting, and at the time I didn't know any better because I had not been in the military yet, but now that it would make sense that the military would keep sort of a leadership structure, right? You're not just a patient on a floor. If you have made it to a point where you're able, you're going to be ahead of the other guys so that you can help them, kind of thing, that you can lead them.
Yeah.
And Brandon was already like maybe the head of that wing. Now, he was a staff sergeant, I believe. But mind you, this is like still very early on in his journey, but he was already like up and at 'em and going. And they had requested that we play songs for them.
Played songs?
We did. And I'm telling you, it was the most humbling, I don't want to say embarrassing, but
You're the front guy of the band.
It was embarrassing in the sense that here we are,
having the time of your life.
20-year-old kids having the time of our lives, while some of our peers are literally laying everything down, some of the best years of their life, and literally like bleeding and dying for
our country, for you to be
for
able
me
to
to
have
be
the time of your life.
a schmuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
what an important experience.
I did. I remember just like, it was so weird. It's weird to say this, but like, I remember like singing a couple songs just with like tears in my eyes for just the absolute humility. I just felt so small, but not in like a ego small way, just in like a, who am I? Like, what am I even thinking of, to even think of myself? And I remember one guy in particular, I'll never forget him. I mean, there was just a large open room full of guys, arms, one arm, two arm, an arm and a leg, two legs. I mean, every combination of amputee that you can think of. And there was one in particular, and I remember he was from Estonia, part of the Coalition of the Willing. And his wife was there with him. Young guy, again, had to be like, he was close to my age, probably not 18, but like early 20s. He was missing all four limbs.
Wow.
And both of his eyes were gone. And whatever stage of healing he was in, they did not have his eyes covered.
Goodness.
I mean, he was, and after having spent years in the fire service, I would say he was the most mangled human being that I've ever seen alive. And again, these were still relatively
He's like
fresh.
Not on a emergency scene.
No, these were relatively fresh injuries, like in the last few weeks. You know what I mean? But he was smile on his face the entire time I played music for him that I don't even know if he understood. You know what I mean? And again, I just took it in. It's one of those things where like, oh, it would be so great if you guys would visit Brandon. You know what I mean? Like,
and God's in it.
God was in it. It was like,
for you and for them.
I didn't do anything. I got the humbling and the.
But you brought joy to them. Like, what a holy experience for everybody.
Sure, but it was, again, I'm not trying to make it about me, about how I learned from it, but like, it was very like, oh my gosh, that experience was for me. in the sense that I was never the same again after that. And I really mean that. I'm not being hyperbolic. And so not only, it's just that thing, like when Veterans Day isn't just about someone being willing to wear the uniform and do a job, it's like there are these people, not just the ones who lay down their lives, but ones who truly pay a lasting price. And they do it because you couldn't tell the difference between Iraq and Iran. Do you hear what I'm saying there? Yeah. Because we couldn't tell the difference between Iraq and Iran. We sent these people.
That's the luxury we have.
And so now I want to tell one more story. Yeah. And we made this, we'll just see how this goes.
I actually have some questions for you as a veteran. We're just going to make this an episode.
Okay. Another story, and again, this is like secondhand. I was not there, but Battle of Fallujah, which for those of you who are familiar is
not many.
The Marine
of us are familiar.
Primarily born by the Marine Corps. There was a lot of Army involvement, but post-invasion, all of Saddam's troops scattered. The invasion was, I don't want to say it's uneventful because we did lose men in that, but generally speaking,
you're speaking of the invasion of Iraq.
The invasion of Iraq. Saddam's troops scattered for the most part. There was not a lot of resistance, and we had just an overwhelming,
This is the initial invasion.
The initial invasion. And I could go like deep into this because they knew what was coming, because in the first Gulf War, we just obliterated Saddam's army, their standing army, with air superiority. Mm-hmm. Like literally we mowed them down on the highways. And they were clogging up the highways, and we just literally bombed them into oblivion.
Goodness.
And so they, probably both Saddam and soldiers themselves who, had heard the stories and even were probably leaders in the army, in the armed forces at that point, they knew better. They basically just scattered everyone to the winds. There was like pockets of resistance for the invasion, but they became sort of an asymmetrical guerrilla warfare resistance. And then of course you have Al-Qaeda and the Islamic radicals pouring in from Iran, which borders Iraq for those of you that still don't know, pouring in from Syria, pouring in from Yemen, pouring in from North Africa, because all the radical Islamists want a chance to kill Americans, and we just gave them the chance by putting 500,000 of us on the ground in Iraq. And so over the course of the next year and a half, 2 years, whatever, one of the seats of resistance, if you will, is Fallujah in Iraq. And U.S. military leadership. Iraqi resistance. Mm-hmm. But mind you, it was a lot of foreign national fighters. So it wasn't necessarily a lot of Iraqi people. It was, but it wasn't.
Fighting on behalf of Iraq.
There was a lot of foreign nationals that came to fight.
Which is someone who is not an Iraqi.
Right.
Just clarifying for those of us who don't know the difference between Iraq and
Iran. So
Iraq.
we had to basically re-invade Fallujah. That's how bad it was. Let's see.
And Fallujah is a town?
A city. It's big.
A city.
And let's see.
Oh, you said April 2003. It's 2004.
No. That's the first Battle of Fallujah. It's really the second Battle of Fallujah.
Well, you said 2003.
No, this is the first Battle of Fallujah. The invasion of Iraq was April 2003. A year before that. A
year later, they invade Fallujah.
Well, we had already invaded the whole country, but there was a battle. So some of you may remember the American military contractors that were hung from the bridge.
Nope, we don't remember that.
Okay, well, either way, that caused us to launch an offensive in Fallujah in a year after the invasion of Iraq. But the second Battle of Fallujah was the big one. And it was actually, we just passed the anniversary, November 7th. of 2004. It's crazy. It's 21 years ago. And basically, just a brief story, again, secondhand, but it was some of the worst fighting that the Marines saw since Vietnam, since Iwo Jima. Like, this was house to house fighting. There was, I don't know how many thousands of structures, but they cleared every room of every building in a city. So if you can imagine a city of like 100,000 people, how many structures there are, how many rooms in each structure.
And when you say clear, you mean like killed them?
No, yeah, they went into and made sure, like literally block, house by house, block by block, made sure there was not a single insurgent, as we were referring to them, in that. So they just literally.
So they either had to run away or get shot.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or give up, I guess, but they didn't.
Were you taking prisoners?
Yeah, but there weren't many that were willing to do that. They were fighting to the death. These are the radical jihadists. So the way they would do that, sometimes if it was bad, they would just drop a bomb on the entire structure and level it.
With Americans in it?
No.
Oh,
We're talking about the Americans
would do that. Got it.
Yes. But they didn't have, they didn't have enough bomb. They weren't prepared to just carpet bomb the place. Mm-hmm. So the Marines would stack up in, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 guys and pour in the doorway. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know how many Medal of Honors and Silver Stars were given out in that, but there was a lot of brutal fighting, literally just in doorways and hallways, and hundreds of Marines were killed in the battles of Fallujah, first and second. But one story that I was told by somebody who was present at the Battle of Fallujah was how
a friend of yours from high school, how
they would take turns stacking up at the front, like whoever's first through the door. If it's the unlucky door that someone has sandbags down the hallway with a machine gun at the end, the first guy or two is a goner, and that's just
luck of the draw.
War. That's just how it goes. And they poured through this door, and there was a little boy, like 10, 11 years old, with an AK-47, who shot the first guy in the stack, and the guy behind him shot and killed that boy. And I believe that even that kid got rounds off that hit the gun of the second guy in the magazine, but they killed this little boy. But what else are you going to do? He just shot one of the guys in the front. And so I tell that story because it's the two things that I take from this, hearing that from my friend and visiting Walter Reed, is we elect the people who allow us to get into conflicts, and we put our veterans in a position to either be killed, be maimed, or to have to commit murder.
Atrocity. To
have to kill, right? And we're Christians here, you know what I mean? So those things should be held in the utmost regard. We of all people should be the most measured. We should be the wisest. We should be,
speaking of Christians,
Christian Americans, we should be slow to anger. You know what I mean? Like, we should be measured and wise in our responses to these things. And we should take the responsibility of sending these boys to be maimed or killed or commit acts that will stay with them forever. Right? Mm-hmm. And that is what Veterans Day, means to me. Is it's not a time for you to thank somebody for their service. It's a time for you to remember the burden you bear as a citizen
of the United States of America.
You don't have the time to go vote for the person who has the responsibility, who carries out your extension of your will. This is what I want
Or
you to.
worse, you do go vote, but you have no education behind your vote. You have no idea what the policies, track record, ideology of the person voting. Obviously, I'm not speaking to the majority of our audience, because you guys are probably listening because you desire to be informed. But you can see where where you see an election like that in New York, or Jay Jones in Virginia, right? I keep forgetting where he's from. And you go, my goodness gracious, and typically it's young people or white liberal women that are like, they have no idea the consequences of their actions as voters and citizens.
Not only that, but they won't bear the consequences.
No, they won't.
So
it's called a luxury belief on the
yes.
One of the last interviews, the last long form interview that Charlie Kirk gave was to this gentleman who used that language, used that word, luxury beliefs, that the elite have the privilege of voting for or voicing or pushing forth or funding ideology that will never touch them. Stuff like defund the police was perpetrated and proliferated and funded by people who have the ability to have private security, by people
or
who
live in an area that
gated communities.
Yeah, they live in such an affluent area, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
What kind of crime response would even be necessary by the police, because their amount of encounters, of course, you could say defund the police when you might encounter the police 2 times in your entire adult life. You know what I mean? For getting a speeding ticket, and your encounter with the police might be you're watching a video that someone has propagandized you into thinking is this or that, right? Luxury beliefs are ruining this country from within, because people are uneducated and unwilling to bear the burden and the consequences of either of their vote, their ideology, or their lack of education on the issues that actually matter and affect other people in this country.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, when Veterans Day rolls around, it's totally fine to thank an old vet for their service.
That's important.
Yeah, that's all good. But it's not just about that. It's a time to reflect on the responsibility that we each hold as citizens, that we are the ones, like the blood is on our hands of those young men and women who died in Iraq and Afghanistan. We allowed that to happen. We did not care for our republic in such a way that it has been taken over by people who did not care about our sons and daughters going to war, dying, being maimed, and committing acts that would stick with them forever. And that when you hear about a veteran committing suicide, I'm not telling you have to feel guilty and bad all day. But in my opinion, when that happens, when I think about it, I think about how we let them down. Not because we didn't give them the help they needed. That's a part of it. But because we sent them on a mission that didn't need sending. That's why. And going forward, we just need to keep that in mind. Like, yes, we should have the most potent, most dangerous military in all the world. I am 100% for that, but we should be so measured and wise about where we put them at risk, when and where we put them at risk, and for what. So that's my takeaway for Veterans Day.
That's super good. There's something that I look forward to in the potential presidency of JD Vance is the return to an actual serviceman to the White House, someone who has actually done the job of serving this
country. A Marine,
country.
nonetheless. I think it's been a while since we've had a Marine president. I'm
But
not
that
even
used
sure.
to be like a given. I mean, think of the founding of our country. You know, they chose George Washington because of his leadership proven out on the battlefield, not because he had good ideas or good policy, although he did. It was because he had proven leadership literally under fire. You
Oh
know,
gosh, Jimmy Carter
was the last
was the
Marine.
last. No, he was an officer in the Navy. That explains it. I was like, there's no way the Marines are claiming that guy. No, he was an officer in the Navy. That I'm sorry, guys, but that doesn't count.
Okay. Well,
That is the
are you telling me that was the last? No. Wait,
that.
what?
No, I don't think we've ever had a United States Marine as a president.
Well, and Marines are like the most awesome.
Don't
I'm not
don't.
trying to stir
They have
up.
big heads as it
I'm
is.
trying
We
to
don't
stir it
need. This
up.
is ridiculous.
Hoorah and stuff.
Definitely do not stir up the Marines. There will be. It'll be out of hand.
Okay,
I can't even say.
I'm sorry.
The
I'm
words
sorry I
that
said
come
it.
to mind.
I'm looking forward to a Marine president. That'd be cool. But we have Trump, obviously not a service member. Before him, Obama, well, Biden, not a service member. Obama, not a service member. Was George W?
George W. got thrown out of the
For cocaine.
I
That's right.
don't know what he was. He was the Air Force Reserve or Navy Reserve or something. But yeah, he got
He
Air,
never-
Air National Guard. It was Air National. He was Air
that's
National Guard.
funny.
He got thrown out for cocaine.
But you
But-
had to, at that time, still like pretend you were going to be a service member.
And then
to
before
get some
him
honor.
was
Was
Clinton.
you said a draft dodger?
He was not a veteran. And then before him was George Bush
yeah.
Sr., who
Was a war hero.
war hero, World War II war hero. And then
So
what
it's
did we
been
get
a
before him was
hot
Reagan. Was Reagan a veteran? I don't think so.
I don't know.
But-
He was a famous actor.
Maybe he
I think
was.
he was
Everyone
acting.
was a veteran back then
Well, that's
because
the thing. Yeah,
you
it's
couldn't make it through World War II without.
Yes, Ronald Reagan was a
but
veteran.
not in combat. U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II, precursor to the Air Force. So he was
Okay.
due to poor eyesight, he was classified 4F, so he never served overseas.
Well, so we
He
have.
did help make propaganda films, though. You don't say.
So that is a tradition that used to exist, almost exclusively until our age, like our generation of people being on Earth, that you served your country as it's not an official prerequisite, but it was like a goes without saying prerequisite until recently. So I look forward to casting a vote for the hopeful candidate of J.D. Vance in 2028 as
And the spirit of that
true
also
veteran.
falls under that same idea that I just described, that the man who sends our people to
needs
war
to know what he
should
is sending them
have
to. Counted the cost.
should
himself.
have that experience or have borne that responsibility
Absolutely.
himself and know what it means.
agree.
Yeah, but that's I actually only care so much about that, but
I do. I care.
That would be cool.
I like things to go back to honor. This is the other thing is like, there used to be that weight of consequence, like we didn't used to be so detached because there was a thing called honor and there was a thing called shame, to your last episode's point of fat shaming being back on the rise. It's when we as Christians, Americans, take seriously what those titles mean and the weight they carry, we have to operate in that. And you know what I mean? Like there used to be in this country just a spirit of honor where like you would pay, if there was a veteran that came in or a man in uniform that came into a restaurant, you would pay for, there would be multiple people that would be wanting to pay for that guy's dinner. Like just a reverence for what it looked like to pay the ultimate sacrifice. I think that was really born out of, World War II primarily because we saw such a decimation of a generation. And then of course, Vietnam changed that dynamic with not wanting to be a part of that conflict, Anyway, we've completely lost that. Now it's like you see a military guy and there's like judgment and people look down on it. I
don't think people look down on it.
Some people
what
do.
I think post World War II, everybody was pretty like honoring of the greatest
Right.
generation,
Yes.
right? The kids of that generation went to Vietnam, and nobody was happy about it. Not we drafted people to go;
Yeah.
they didn't want to go. Half the people back home didn't think we should be involved in it. So that generation came
Rightfully
back
so.
with no warm welcome whatsoever. In fact, they were spit on. And then we've just been a nation of kind of perpetual warfare for the most part for the last 25 years, and I think where we're at is we just take it for granted
Yeah, it's
now.
disassociated.
It's just disassociated, and we just think it's just a way of some people do that. It's just another job.
There's
And
there's honor in it for the people who do it, but there's no honor in it for the people who don't even know. Like literally, there were people who died in Afghanistan and in Iraq who weren't even born when September 11th happened. Like that is how long that went on. So men went to fight that war with no emotional or actual knowledge or experience of the event that supposedly was the catalyst for it. I mean,
well, and you think that we wrapped up a world war in 4 years where there was actually like a
Purpose.
true axis of evil. The Japanese and the Germans were literally like taking over the world, raping and pillaging. And in 4 years, we put that to a stop. But remember, it just all comes back to we have, because we gave up our responsibility, because we abdicated to bureaucrats and we just stopped caring about our representatives. They were able to get into a point where the point of this last war was to perpetuate it. Dick Cheney's plan, the man who just probably went to hell recently, his whole purpose while he was in office was to
keep the war going.
Get us in war and keep the war going. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, Obama,
his daughter has been carrying that torch ever since.
I'll call it how I see it. Obama had more drone attacks than any other U.S. president. So he was really better.
But hope and change.
He was no better. And that is something that I was really impressed with about Trump in the first 4 years, was his resistance to get pulled into war in the Middle East, etc. And it is of my some of my highest concerns right now with things like Venezuela and stuff. But my concerns with that are, I mean, it's probably too soon to say, but I'm feeling like we heard Eric and Laura Trump speak the other day, and Eric spoke very directly about no new wars. And I feel like he would not have said that if the Trump administration actually has a plan to do that. But then again, we're weird about what we call wars, because we could bomb Venezuela with F-35s for 3 months and Trump might not consider that a war. I don't know, so we'll see. But the main thing is that I don't want to see young American men bleeding over something that is not worth our most precious resource in this nation, which is our young people, the next generation. I won't be an older generation that's willing to sacrifice the younger generation for what?
Nothing.
My 401k or something. No, that's not going to happen. For the price of oil, that's not going to be.
So obviously you served in the military and you felt compelled to serve in the military basically from a young age, right?
Yes.
And it was because of your grandfather.
Yes.
Why don't you share a little bit about that story?
My grandfather was Captain Thomas Anthony Cunningham. He flew a C-124, which is the largest cargo plane the Air Force had at the time. And he, unfortunately, his plane went down. I believe it was December 31st of 1963, I believe. Somewhere over the Pacific.
Wasn't he on his way home?
He was on his way home, as far as we know. The family was stationed at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. He had gone through Travis Air Force Base, which is ironically where I was as a reservist. That's where I was at. And I believe he was headed to Guam or Honolulu, Hickam, because back then they didn't have refuelers. Nowadays we would just refuel midair. Not always, but
which is wild.
But they would actually have to island hop. And I believe they dropped something off in Vietnam area, something having to do with that, and were coming home. And we don't know the rest of the story. Basically, they just disappeared.
There was no Mayday call.
Technically, he's an MIA, missing in action kind of thing.
Like that's the official.
They never recovered the plane. They never recovered
wreckage,
any
nothing.
bodies. Nothing.
It's the worst.
And so, my dad and his sister, and then his second sister, who my grandmother was actually pregnant with at the time. But my dad, didn't have a dad after 5 years old or 6 years old, whatever that was. And that's definitely left a, scar on the family. And another thing that just impresses upon me the importance of these things, the weight and gravity of what our service members do for this nation.
A generational effect. It's not just this one man that's not there. It's like that affected your dad, which of course affected you, and here we are.
No, it's wild. But I mean, just real quick, like as a disclaimer, if you will, I feel like I was very blessed in that I never had to deploy. Mm-hmm. I was a traditional reservist. I was
also very blessed that you never had to deploy. That was
it was funny because initially we were like, let's try to get a deployment and get it under our belts. But then as I became a traditional, that's how I felt. It was during that initial time, it was, you're talking 2008, 2009-ish or whatever. And it was, I was a firefighter or in fire protection for the United States Air Force Reserve. And there was no deployments for our units, etc. at that time. And so, but it very quickly became like a relief to not get deployed because I got hired and I was in a probationary status as a firefighter at a city department. And so I did not want to get deployed and have them like, you can't be fired for being deployed, but they could have just been like, this is a real pain in the butt for a new employee to leave for 6 months. And I was really worried that would happen. And then they would let me go because it was at will employment for the first 18 months. But yeah, so I mean, I feel like I'm like the poster child for the Air Force Reserve commercials, and it was incredible for our family and for me. And I had the most incredible experience from basic training to Fire Academy in San Angelo, Texas at Goodfellow for the whole Department of Defense's Fire Academy there. Had an incredible time there.
Me too. I was there.
You were there. Yeah. I got to live off base because my grades were so good.
And you had a wife.
That's why I had to live off base, or I tried to get off base.
Right, but you wouldn't have just lived off base because your grades were good.
No, because I had a wife, because I had a really cool wife that needed me.
One of two guys that had a wife.
But it was hilarious. Even when I joined in basic training, I was a little bit older than everybody, right? So
which a 23-year-old versus an 18-year-old.
It was almost not even fair.
It's like a decade.
Well, so I was in my senior year during 9/11, and everyone around me was in 6th grade during 9/11.
Yeah.
Which that's a huge difference. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost unfair in the sense that it would be totally different for me having done it at 18 years old.
Yeah.
In that it was easy for me to excel
past 18-year-olds.
Well, not just past 18-year-olds, because it's the test is for everybody, you know, but the things that would trip them up, I was like, just roll your dang socks up, man. Or just get out of bed,
You're talking about discipline wise.
Yeah. Just the little things. And then even discipline in testing and at academy studying and stuff. And
you were taking it much more seriously.
Yes.
So what made you want to be a part of the military because of your grandfather?
It wasn't just
carrying of a torch.
I just always thought it was like the coolest thing to do. I mean, me and a buddy for years when I was younger, early high school, we swam and played water polo, and he and I were both like dead set we were going to join the Navy and try to be SEALs and all that, and that was like we were obsessed with it, and I just thought it was like the coolest job in the world. I still think that in a lot of ways. I just knowing what I know now, I wouldn't change a thing because being your husband and the father of our children is the coolest job in the world. So God is so good in that I got to serve. I got to be a fireman, which was another like a dream that came later than the SEAL thing, but was just such a cool experience and answer to prayers in that regard. To do, manly, masculine, awesome, for lack of a better term, badass things, but to not have to give up your like kind of entire life to the profession of soldiering, which is really what things like being, and again, my hat is off to all those people, not just Navy SEALs, but those people who are serving in such a capacity that they can't have a family, like, or and that's an incredible sacrifice
of your story. That before you and I got together, you were on the path to be a combat controller, which means that you scored in like the top 3%. Because you can't get that job without being
that was just
very awesome.
Well, but in fairness, like that was just to get the opportunity to go to their pre-qualification.
Right.
So
you would have had to go through all that.
Yeah, absolutely. But
what is a combat controller?
That's probably a different episode because
just what is that?
Basically, they call in airstrikes and are attached to. They're in the special operations community. They're attached to usually teams of Navy SEALs or teams of Special Forces, Green Berets types. And
you like parachute in behind enemy lines and call in coordinates.
Yeah, there's a really crazy cool story. A movie was made after, but it didn't even touch it. Where in the invasion of Afghanistan, we dropped a bunch of guys behind enemy lines. And
what's the movie?
I forget, but that's like it might be Behind Enemy Lines. I don't know, but there's a book called Horse Soldiers that's actually the movie is based on, but these guys team up with the rebels in Afghanistan, the Northern Alliance, they're called. And they actually they took I think it was the Kandahar airport or the Bagram, I forget, but one of the airports that they had to secure so that the Army Rangers could land. So when we think like the first people to actually touch down in the news were like Army Rangers took the airfield, but actually these like 13 dudes teamed up with the Northern Alliance and did a cavalry charge on this airfield in Afghanistan. They took the tower, the control tower, and then they proceeded to call in airstrikes. These guys this combat controller had to call in danger close air support, meaning basically bomb our position within 100 meters of our position. And the the Northern Alliance guys had been fighting against the Taliban forever, for decades. And these guys actually dogpiled on top of the combat controller because they knew if he didn't keep calling in airstrikes,
they would die.
That if the Americans lost and they didn't come, that's what they were afraid of, that they would be left to fight the Taliban alone again. So they literally were like, keep this guy alive because he is the key to taking this airfield and the Americans will come. And so
okay, so you were going to go be that guy, the combat controller, or
I was going to go try to be that
guy, and you did not get on the bus.
So that was in January of, I can't remember.
Well, we started dating in 2007, June of 2007.
So it was probably either the year before that or earlier that year. I can't remember.
I think it was earlier that year.
It might have been.
Well, I think it was because that fall before I moved home, I went to your going away party. which is
Yeah. Yep.
God is so funny the way he weaves together our stories, because Tom and I went to high school together. We were like friends of friends. All of his closest friends were my closest friends, but like we weren't running in the circle together necessarily at the same time. And my sister, he's between me, I'm older, and my sister is younger than him. And so my sister invited me to his going away party. I don't even remember even talking to you that night,
I vaguely remember seeing Wit,
but I went to your going away party, and then
it was a heck of a party. I mean, it
was a great time.
There was 100 people there.
but you didn't go away, which I've been known to have going away parties and then not go away also, which is a funny little fact. But then I did move home, and you had just decided not to do it at all, not go as a combat controller, but just, and you said, and I can vouch for this, you said it was the only time for like 2 weeks you couldn't sleep because you were so burdened by the decision of, should I do this? Should I go try and do this? Because, well, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but you told me, maybe you're just blowing smoke, trying to be cute, but you were like, if I do this, it would not be fair to have a wife and kids. Like if I go be a combat controller, it would be irresponsible to have a wife and kids, but you wanted more. I feel like you said God had told you, or you felt called to be a father and a husband.
Not just, I mean, now I would say that was like my greatest desire. Like I was always, I mean, I've told you this 100 times, but I just was always the guy, like I wanted to be a dad. I didn't.
He did tell me that early on in our dating, like date 1. And I was like, what is this?
I get straight to the point about that stuff. Okay. I was
Don't try to pull voodoo witchcraft on me.
Not the guy that was like trying to see how many girlfriends I could have before getting married.
He started courting me. We courted.
I was looking for a wife and kids, and that's what I wanted. And I knew in my heart, like, it was like going back to something that I'd already passed, that opportunity. It was like going back to that dream of like being a Navy SEAL.
Because you went to the band. And
so I did a few years on the road as a musician and all this stuff. So
when you were looking at becoming a combat controller, you were already older than, the typical go into the military age. And so he ultimately ended up not getting on the bus, so to speak, which is like voids your contract, right?
Well, believe me, I don't recommend doing that. It is, you get one pissed off recruiter, that is for sure. But it was, I mean, it's your life, man. I'll tell you that much too. Like, I remember.
I'm really glad you didn't do it.
One of my very good friends who was in the Marines, who was in the Battle of Fallujah, had taken me aside, and this is someone I respected as a human being outside of their service, and respected them enormously as a veteran.
And he was already back.
And he had done at least 2 tours. Mm-hmm. He had invaded Iraq and been there for the Second Battle of Fallujah. And he was like, Tom, I wouldn't do it. Like if I had to do it again, I would say, don't do it. And mind you, this is a guy who's highly decorated,
and made it back.
Did his job honorably and made it back, and was like, I wouldn't do it, man. And that did weigh on me. And also, I remember going out into the wilderness where I would do a lot of hiking and hunting and stuff. And I was like, I'm not coming back. I didn't bring like anything. I was like, I'm not coming back until like the Lord tells me what to do, And I remember, I kid you not, can you make this up?
That.
I sat on top of this mountain, which this is like the coastal mountains. This isn't like crazy high mountains, but it's out in the Cache Creek wilderness area. And I just hiked up to the top and just sat there, and I just like for a few hours, and I just knew in my heart, I was like, the easy thing to do would be to get on the bus and go, but it would be a major mistake in my path. You know what I mean? And I feel like I always get challenged with these things in life. Maybe other people do too, I'm sure. But where it's like, man, I had to like swallow a lot of pride, and it was not
And then
an
have
easy
no
thing to
idea
do.
what your path would look like, because the path was like laid out. That's your
Well,
career.
and the recruiter was very clear too. You will never serve if you do this. And I mean, I was like, I wouldn't take me back either. That was super lame, because I was like a few weeks from leaving. It wasn't the next day or anything like that, but it was a couple weeks. But they give you these slots ahead of time, like months in advance, and you are taking a slot in basic training that fits a slot in the next training. You know what I mean? Like it's a massive machine that is the military. But God is good, and he answered my obedience in that time, because I really believe that's what that was
him telling
me
you not to do it.
not chasing my fleshly desires, because he's saying, Tom, I have something for you. I know the true desires of your heart, and I have something for you. And
It was me.
to get to have a wife and serve as a fireman. And really cool twist to it, we'll wrap this up here in a second, but is I didn't even think about this until I was already in it. But like my grandfather died in the Air Force because his plane went down, and I became an aircraft rescue firefighter for the Air Force and trained to rescue pilots and aircrew. And in fact, I've never been able to verify this. Now that ChatGPT is around, I should try to use it a little bit for it. But the Air Force base that the fire academy for the entire Department of Defense it's in San Angelo, Texas. It's called Goodfellow Air Force Base. Small spot, really cool. It's like an intel and fire protection, and then one other career path there. And it has a flight line and everything from it used to be a training base. And I had heard through the grapevine that they used to do C-130 training there when the C-130 was first coming out. And that's what my grandfather was training on. But with the buildup of the Vietnam conflict, they had to pull him out of C-130 training and fly him on the C-124s again. But there were two bases I went to in training: Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio and Goodfellow. It was an interesting time to be like, this is in some ways the closest I've ever been to my grandfather.
That's sweet.
Like I actually got to march on the same roads and paths that my grandfather did at Lackland Air Force Base, and to possibly, again, I never was able to verify this, but march on this little tiny Air Force base in the middle of Texas where my grandfather possibly trained as a C-130 pilot. Like,
that's very cool.
It was such a God wink in that period of my life, which just really, really cool.
Also, that I immediately showed up back in hometown after you decided not to go be a combat controller.
When did we meet? May?
I moved back right after my sister's 21st birthday.
And
May
I was
28th.
I cannot get involved with any more girls. I have to.
Wow.
And then you
just
showed up.
Made yourself sound. I cannot get in. I have too many girlfriends.
I cannot get tied up with any girls. And then Wendy showed up. I was one more. Let's just give it a shot.
I told my friend in San Diego, I was like, I'm just going to move home and get out of debt, and then I'll be back. And she said, don't go home and get a boyfriend. I was like,
how about a husband?
Definitely not. And then we were married 1 year later, almost to the day.
And here we are 17 and a half.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, 17 and a half years later.
High five. Going strong.
Come on.
Happy Veterans Day. Subscribe, share if this episode blessed you.
Thank you for your service. And
yes,
those of you who have not served in uniform, let's remember our responsibility to those who we send in uniform. God bless.
thanks for joining us on the Modern Watchman podcast.
Remember, truth isn't just something we believe, it's something we live out every day.
Stay alert, stay discerning, and don't lose sight of the hope we have in Christ.
Until next time,
Be watchmen.